I'm probably live now. Hello, people. Hello, people. So let me ask you something. What does the Game of Thrones have to do with Colossians chapter 3, verse 11? Are you wondering? Are you? Well, hello, everybody. I am Coach Stacy Lynn. I'm glad that you have decided to join me today on this live stream. It is about quarter to 4 p.m. Central Time on Monday, June 15th, 2026. And today I am going to continue my series going through the book of Colossians, chapter 3. Actually, we're just going through chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. And I want to give you a sneak peek into something that I'm going to be doing, and I will be posting the video soon. One of my favorite things to do is look at people who have Bibles and Bible collections. I used to host the podcast Bible News Radio, so I have a lot of Bibles over the last 20 years. I've been given a lot of Bibles, and I thought I would start sharing some of my collection with people here on the internet. Maybe you'll find one you want to get to, and I wanted to do that because I just think it's fun. And just so you can see, I have a couple, and I'm going to go more in depth in my video I just finished before going live. I have the Rex Humbard Prophecy Bible. Yeah, I do. I'm going to talk about that. I have the Living Bible. You'll learn why that one's important to me. I have this Bible. This is the Veritas ESV from Crossway. This is a premium Bible. This Bible runs about $350. I explained more about that in my video. This is one of my favorite Bibles. This is Calling America Back to the Bible. When you watch my video, you'll learn where I got this from. I think you'll find it interesting. And should my house burn down, of the 50 or 60 Bibles I have, this is the Bible that I would grab. And I tell you more about this actually in the video. So I will have that video up soon. But if you like Bibles and you want to learn about study Bibles and different Bibles, my new video series on that will launch later today. So, however, though, one of the things that I want to talk about today is I want to talk about, we're continuing our series in Colossians chapter 3, learning to think like Christ, right? And today I spent almost 3 hours going through this one verse, and I discovered something that I thought was totally cool, and I can't wait to share it with you. If you're a Bible geek, you're going to enjoy this one. And if you love God's word, it will change your life, and it will totally change your life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get into Colossians chapter 3, and you're going to be able to see some really cool things here. Let me go ahead, make sure that I got the right page here. All right, here we go. This is my Substack page. You can go up to stacylynn.substack.com. I will also link this in the comments. Actually, I can do that right now. Since we're doing a live stream, I can do it right now. And if you so desire to click over there, bookmark it, go for it. It will be here in the chat as well. But this is actually verse 11. I'm going to share with you. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger too so you can see it. So what I'm doing here is I'm quoting from the NLT and the New American Standard. In this new life, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Gentile, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbaric, uncivilized, slave or free. Christ is all that matters, and he lives in all of us. That's the NLT. In the New American Standard, it says a renewal in which there's no distinction between Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and freeman, but Christ is all and in all. So first thing, I want you to know is that context is always king in matters of interpretation. If you've been watching through this series, I think we have something like, 15 videos now. You'll know that I keep hammering that point because people take things out of context all the time. So just to remind you, I'm pulling it up right here so I can remind you. If you're new, I'm not reminding you, I'm showing it to you. And I'm going to look in the New American Standard because that's really my study Bible, what I tend to study in. And I'm going to bring this up on the screen so you can look at it. All right. So give me one moment, please. All right. Colossians 3. Okay, check this out. Okay. Remember, the whole point of Colossians is that Paul is counteracting bad Bible, let's say, bad Jewish teaching, Gnosticism, things like that these guys were coming out of. So he told them, therefore, if you've been raised up with Christ, keep seeking things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. So the first verse right there is basically about justification. If you've been raised up, if you've been born again, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to keep seeking the things above, right? Set your mind on the things above, not on the things that are on the earth. I can tell you right now that 99.9% of Christians don't do this because they're obsessed with the news. And not the good news, the bad news. Anyway, verse 3 goes on to say, for you have died. Yeah, you have. You have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. So what is this? This is past tense. You have already died. Your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, is revealed, then you will also be revealed with him in glory. So right here, these verses give you the three tenses of salvation. You got justification, sanctification, and glorification. Okay. It's really more so, well, it's actually all three. The sanctification part is this part. So it's past, present, and future. So if you've been raised up with Christ, past, for you have died, past, keep setting your mind on things above, present, and then here is the future. Okay. So we've gone through this in depth. Okay. Then we look through all these different things that we're supposed to be dead to, all this stuff, and you can go and you can look through all of your Bible, and you can, all my videos if you want, you can watch it, and you can compare and contrast, tell me where I'm wrong, and that's okay. Okay. So verse 10 though says, and have put on a new self who is being renewed to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him. That's what we talked about in our last video. And now it says, a renewal in which there's no distinction between Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, and freeman, but Christ is all and in all. Okay. Most people are going to read through that and go, hit a snooze button. That's what most people are going to do that. They're going to go, snooze. I have no idea. I don't really care. What the heck? But I am not most people. I am Stacy Lynn Harp, and I love the Bible. And so I'm going to show you what I discovered. And I think you will find this very interesting. And as I said in the title of my thing. All right. So let's go ahead and just look at the different categories that Paul is listing. The first category he's listing is Greek. I don't know how to say this in Greek, so I'm not going to bother saying it, but the Greek word is this word. It looks like Helen. It may be pronounced Helene, I don't know, but it means Grecian or inhabitant of Hellas. It's by extension, it's a Greek-speaking person, especially a non-Jewish person. It's a Gentile, in other words. In a wider sense, the name embraces all nations that are not Jewish. Okay, bottom line. And this word is used 25 times. And here are just a few of the verses that you can see it used in. And this is important because when you look at this in context and then you do a word study on it, you learn so much more. And that's what's really cool about this. So Acts 14:1, the same thing happened in Iconium. Paul and Barnabas went to the Jewish synagogue and preached with such power that a great number of both Jews and Greeks became believers. Yeah, they did. Okay, you want to get down? You're going to get down, and I'm not chasing you, just so you know. Okay? Okay. All right, Acts 16:1. Paul went first to Derbe and then to Lystra, where there was a young disciple named Timothy. His mother was a Jewish believer, but his father was Greek. Okay, and then I give a couple more examples, and you can read this on my blog. All right, the second word is Jew. And the word for Jew is this word here, right there, and it means Judean, belonging to Jehudah of Judea. This word is used 193 times, And I found it really interesting as I was going through trying to pick out certain verses that most of these had a prophetic tone that I pulled out. Matthew 2:2, where's the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. Matthew 27:11, now Jesus was standing before Pilate, the Roman governor. Are you the king of the Jews? The governor asked him. Jesus replied, you have said it. Matthew 27:37, a sign was fastened above Jesus's head, announcing the charge against him. It read, this is Jesus, the king of the Jews. I think you get the point, right? And part of the reason why I'm sharing that, part of the reason I want to point out that Jesus is the king of the Jews is because that is the big debate throughout history of all time. If you don't understand why Jesus came to the Jews in Israel, you can't understand the Bible as a whole, because that's the central meaning of it. And in short, what happened was the Jewish people are looking for their Messiah. The Messiah is prophesied about in the Old Testament. When Jesus showed up, he presented himself to Israel and said, basically, hello, I'm your Messiah. Hello. They rejected him. And as a result of that rejection, everybody else in the world now can come to the Lord. That's an awesome thing. Okay. So that's why this is important. Okay. I got to go back here. I'm going to go into the next one. And I'm really doing this, trying to do this as fast as I can, because I know that some of you are probably falling asleep already, but this is not for those of you who are falling asleep. It's for those of you who really love the Bible and who are geeky like me. All right, the next word is circumcised that Paul uses. And the Greek word for circumcised is peritome, or tomim, tome, and it means the right, the condition, or the people, literally or figuratively. Why is this category important? I'll tell you why. Because God gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision so that his people would be set apart. That's why this is important. In fact, Acts 7:8 says this. God also gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision at that time. So when Abraham became the father of Isaac, he circumcised him on the 8th day. And the practice was continued when Isaac became the father of Jacob and when Jacob became the father of the 12 patriarchs of the Israelite nation. Romans 2:29 says, no true Jew is one whose heart is right with God. And a true circumcision is not merely obeying the letter of the law. Rather, it is a change of heart produced by the Spirit. And a person with a changed heart seeks praise from God, not from people. Read that, Perry Stone. Just saying. Okay, anyway. Romans 4:10. But how did this happen? Was he counted as righteous only after he was circumcised, or was it before he was circumcised? Clearly, God accepted Abraham before he was circumcised. So the point here with the circumcision is it was really a separation of religion. Okay. And this verse is saying that the gospel is for everybody, the circumcised and the uncircumcised. And we're going to look at that next, the uncircumcised. Okay, so let's look at it. All right. I'm going to scroll through here. Okay. The Greek word for uncircumcised is acrobastia, I guess. This means the penis or male sexual organ. By implication, this is an uncircumcised organ, okay? Just so you know. And Romans 2:27, it says, in fact, the uncircumcised Gentiles who keep God's law will condemn you Jews who are circumcised and possess God's law but don't obey it. That's an interesting conversation, but we don't have time to get into it. Romans 4:11, circumcision was a sign that Abraham already had faith and that God had already accepted him and declared him to be righteous even before he was circumcised. So Abraham is the spiritual father of those who have faith but have not been circumcised. Okay, so that would include me and you, us Gentile people. They are counted as righteous because of their faith. We don't have to be circumcised, in other words, in order to be saved. And that's one of the points. Okay. The fifth point here is barbarian. The Greek word is barbaros, and it means a foreigner and one whose speech is rude, rough, or harsh. This word, interestingly, is used 6 times in 5 verses in the Bible. And here they are. Acts 28:2. The people of the island, that these are the barbarians, that's where this is translated from, were very kind to us. It was cold and rainy, so they built a fire on the shore to welcome us. Acts 28:4. The people of the island, same thing, that's the same word there, saw it hanging from his hand and said to each other, a murderer, no doubt, though he escaped the sea, justice will not permit him to live. Romans 1:14, for I have a great sense of obligation to people in both the civilized world and the rest of the world. The rest of the world would be the uncivilized world, just so you know. To the educated and uneducated alike. 1 Corinthians 14:11, but if I don't understand a language, I will be a foreigner to someone who speaks it, and the one who speaks it will be a foreigner to me. And then the last verse is this verse, Colossians 3:11, which we're actually looking at right now. Okay. So I don't know about you, but I find that really interesting because so many people today will say, oh, there's no way that those people, those unreached people in Africa or wherever who still hunt and fish and live off the land and they look like barbarians can ever come to the Lord. It's not true. It is not true. Paul actually went to some of these people. That's why he's including them in this list. But this is where it gets super cool and very interesting. And this is why I named it what I named it today. Okay. This next group of people is the Scythian. Okay. Now, have you ever wondered what the Scythian or Scythian people are? Well, now you're going to learn. Okay. Here. Its Greek word is Scythes or Scythes. And it means it's an inhabitant of Scythia, which is modern Russia. By the more civilized nations of antiquity, the Scythians were regarded as the wildest of all barbarians. Cicero actually wrote about that. Josephus wrote about it. And some of these other people wrote about it. Okay. Interestingly, and I found this is interesting, and this is why looking at the original language is fun, because when you look at the original language, you learn stuff like this. Interestingly, this word Scythian is used one time in the Bible, and it's in this verse, Colossians 3:11. Okay, so when you think of Scythians, you think of wildest of all the barbarians, okay? And I did a Perplexity search, Perplexity AI, and I came up with some really interesting things that Perplexity told me about the Scythians. They spoke in an Iranian language, which was related to ancient Persian. The Greeks called them Scythoi. Scythian refers to many related tribes, not a single unified nation. They were feared people for their horsemanship and mobility, and they used composite bows, trifoil arrows, and Persian-type swords, elite warriors, more Greek helmets, and chainmail. They worshiped the war gods, including the Greek Eris. And what they did was when they captured their enemies, they ended up sacrificing them. They would cut their heads off and carry it in a bucket that the blood would come dripping out of the head. And then what they would do is they would literally collect the heads of the people so that they could prove who they beat in battle. Pretty gross, pretty barbaric, right? And yet, it's interesting the tie back to Iran and some other things even to today. Now, what I find really interesting also is that their military included warrior women. And if you click this here, I'm going to click it. I'm going to see if it's tab instead. Okay, let me make sure it did it. Okay, it is. Okay, now check this out. When I'm doing this Bible study, I'm looking up this, I discover this lecture on the Scythians, right? These were nomad warriors. And anyway, it turns out that the guy, and I'm not going to play this because I don't want to mess this thing up. But if you do play it, like if I clicked it here, wait, hold on.
The ones we know most.
This guy here, he is actually an Oxford academic. It actually says here, this is on the Oxford academic YouTube channel. So this guy is like, he's had Oxford people. So, okay, anyway, and he is a scholar and he is giving this amazing presentation about the Scythians. Now here's the thing that I find fascinating, and I'm going to stop sharing this. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm going to share a different page in just a second here. All right, let's see here. I'm going to change this, and wait, hold on a second. Now, I think it's interesting that Paul mentions this and nobody ever talks about it, but who were the ancient Scythians? Let's check this out. Okay. It says here, for nearly 1,000 years, the ancient Scythians struck terror in the hearts of their enemies. Latest archaeological findings shed new light on these mighty horse lords, unlocking the intricacies of their skills in archery and decorative art. This was actually published 3 years ago in 2023, just so you know, okay? This is actually some of what they believed that they looked like. They were, and they would often kill other people's horses as well. So, but this is interesting. It says here, unless you're a fan of the comic book series and Netflix film The Old Guard, you may have never heard of the Scythians before now, but chances are you've seen some aspect of their influence down through the long years in human history. And then it talks a little bit about that. And, I can link this is actually linked over on my Substack page, which I already linked in the comments, but it goes on. It tells you a little bit more. They were feared. They didn't write about their own history. So Herodotus, I guess that's how you say it, Herodotus, wrote extensively about them in his work called Histories. And it says here, and thank goodness he did, because they left no written records of their own. And Herodotus noted that none who attack the Scythians can escape, and none can catch them if they desire not to be found. As nomads, they had no real cities to besiege, and Herodotus thought this made them particularly challenging people to attack and subdue, and it also made them highly desirable fighters to have on your side. And history records that ancient Scythian mercenaries sometimes hired out to Greek cities. Okay. Horses were a big deal to them. You can see that in a lot of their art, but this is why I titled this podcast, or this video, this. What made Scythians so formidable wasn't simply the fact that they were great fighters, but that they were great fighters on horseback. If this sounds at all familiar to Game of Thrones fans, it's with good reason. The real-life ancient tribes of the Scythian regions inspired the fictional Dothraki horse lords. I don't know if I'm saying that right, because I've never watched Game of Thrones, but it is interesting to me that today I discovered the Scythians inspired the Game of Thrones. So go figure. But why is this so important? Paul mentions them in this list, and he mentions them near the end. The next thing that we're going to look at in short is the last word, which is slave. But I'm pointing this out, and I believe, as I went through this for about 3 hours today, looking at this text, that the reason this is listed is because it's just a overall view of the fact that Christ can reach literally anybody, the worst of the worst, the barbarians of the barbarians, right? That's who these people are. A lot of people will say, well, I don't believe that Ted Bundy is in heaven, or I don't believe that whoever the heck, Charlie Manson can get into heaven if he becomes a Christian. Yeah, he can. God can reach anybody. Salvation is for all as long as they receive Jesus. I mean, that's as simple as it is. It's just believing in Jesus. Okay. And then the last part of verse 11. The last thing in Paul's list is slave. And it's the Greek word doulos, which I'm sure a lot of you know, if you're a Bible student. If you're not, you don't care. But he mentions a slave as well, that Christ comes to the slave. And what I found interesting in going through the word slave, because it's used quite a bit in the New Testament in particular, is that Jesus taught. He said, students are not greater than their teacher, and slaves are not greater than their master. Jesus said, whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. And Jude, he says this letter is from Jude, a slave of Jesus Christ and a brother of James. Okay, so he calls himself a slave. So not only is this word doulos talking about a literal slave, somebody that would be enslaved, who would be a servant slave, but when we become Christians, right here, we become one who worship God and we submit to him. So we are slaves, we are servants to God once we've received Christ as our Lord and we follow him. Okay, so I'm going to sum this up here. What I find interesting in this list that Paul gave us is that it starts with the Jews and Greeks, then it goes to a religious distinction because of circumcision. From there, it goes to barbarians, and then it lists another specific people group, the Scythians, which is interestingly still tied to Iran today, aka also known as Iranians, and who lives in Iran, but tons of those who follow Islam, which is also known for being extremely barbaric, those who literally teach and preach Islam according to the Quran. Very interesting, isn't it? I thought that was very interesting. In closing, Paul mentions slaves, and what's interesting there is that he's talking about literal slaves and those who are made a slave to Christ. All right, so, and let's not forget this. I will tell you that the most important part of that whole verse is where it says Christ is in all, and that Christ is all, right? So in all these groups, from the so-called good Greeks and Jews to the uncircumcised and the circumcised, to the barbarians, to the Scythians, who are the barbarians of barbarians, and then to the slaves, Jesus can save them all. So, what does knowing this do for you as a person? Hopefully, what knowing this will do for you is give you an understanding of how deep and wide and how rich God's love is for us and literally those people all over the world. For God so loved the world, right? Literally everybody in the world, Jesus loves. Jesus died literally for everybody. There's no one outside his reach. No one. And when we begin to think like Christ, that is one of the things that we will think. We will go, oh my gosh, so-and-so needs the Lord. Let's share the gospel with them, right? So if by chance you are watching this and you do not yet know Jesus and you don't know who he is, then I want to encourage you to open up a Bible and start reading it. Ask God to show himself to you, and he will. And then all you have to do is believe. That's all I did many years ago when my friend Gail, she got her grandma to give me a copy of this paraphrased version of the Bible. And as a young teen, I read this Bible and I fell in love with it. It changed my life. The words in the Bible changed me, changed my life, which is why I spend so much time in it, which is why I love it so much, and which is why even if nobody watches this or I get 3 views on this, I don't care, because I spent time with the Lord learning how great he is by reading it. So that is our lesson today in Colossians chapter 3, verse 11. If you just joined me, hello. If you want to leave a comment, go for it. And I hope you enjoyed this. And again, I'm Coach Stacy Lynn. If you're interested in coaching, you need help. I work with a lot of different things. Just reach out to me. I have a calendar. You can set up an appointment with me on that. I'm happy to talk to you. And believe it or not, I will talk to you just like I'm talking here. I'm not different from when I actually talk to you. What you see is what you get, right? So I hope you check it out. Also, I have a new membership that YouTube gave me, and they're giving anybody who joins it a month for free. So if you want to check that out, you can do that as well. It doesn't cost you anything. If you want to join it today, you can do it for free. And if you don't want to keep it, just cancel it before your month is up. I did put some videos in it, so there's some videos there maybe you haven't seen. I will be adding some other content in there as well. And anyway, check it out. I hope you have a good day. And maybe tomorrow, I'm trying to find out. I'm not sure if I'm coming in tomorrow. I think I might have some appointments. But if not, I will update my community wall. You can check it out. If I say I'm going to do something live, I probably will. If I do, it'll be in the afternoon. So, and we will continue looking at Colossians 3, and we're going to look at verse 12 next. We're almost done with the series. So, hope you check it out. All right. And I hope you have a better day, people. All right. Take care. Until next time.